So as always, when you see posts like this on my page, it's not to race or rage bait or rile people up to go and harass and attack people. No, this is for re-educational purposes only.
When we is the original people, that's why we do not know ourselves. We really...
Alright, man, this is getting really out of hand. Brother, what is this?
Oh, hell no!
And on top of the madness, look what it says, right? As the original people, we're multi-dimensional beings, which means that we can exist in every dimensional realm. We don't have to settle for just one dimensional realm. We could dominate all realms and make them ours. Okay, grifting means like to scam, right? It's what pimps do. All these dudes basically practice Hinduism. Honestly, Hinduism to me is an ancient grift. Because when you go beyond the love and light spiritual drug shit that makes you come back for more because they don't really tell you exactly like how to really get to that level, if you know what I'm talking about. When you go beyond that and see what's lurking in the shadows, it's pretty sick, like this shit right here.
You not no native, please just be honest, you really a $5 Indian. Pay $5 to take my land, you know you a fraud, you not one of them. The government changed our name, just so we don't get no reparations.
Now this is a rhetoric they always say, right? Meet Walter Plecker, the man responsible for the destruction of the records in 1913 in 50 states that showed how Native Americans were reclassified as black and Negro. Good old Walter Plecker, my brother. In 1866, a law declared that every person having 1/4 or more African American blood was deemed to be a colored person, and everyone not colored person having 1/4 or more Indian blood was to be deemed an Indian. Walter Plecker, in charge of the state's vital statistics record, employed the law to classify all Virginians as white or colored, and to classify the state's Indians as colored. Plecker believed that some African Americans were attempting to pass as Indians and feared that Indians would attempt to pass as white. Plecker also regularly sent out alerts. This guy was obsessed. He's like, yo, we're not gonna let these guys pretend to be white, yo. They're not us. They're not like us, man. A historical term originating in the South that holds that a person with any trace of African ancestry is considered black. Native Americans were not universally reclassified as Negro. In the 1790s, the first U.S. Census categorized most as Indian, not taxed, and left them uncounted. However, some state and local officials later began reclassifying mixed race individuals as colored or Negro on official documents, which contributed to paper genocide and assimilation of native identity. This practice aimed to eliminate native identity, particularly in states like Rhode Island and Virginia, by denying them recognition and access to rights and privileges associated with being native or white. Reason for reclassification. Many states, such as Rhode Island, began a practice of classifying mixed-race people as colored or Negro starting in the late 18th century. This was a deliberate effort to erase Native American identity and force assimilation onto Narragansett state people. Paper genocide. Manipulating and misrepresenting records, claims no true Native American existed became a tool for denying the existence of Native people on paper. Places like Virginia feared that mixed-race individuals might try to claim Native or white status to avoid being classified as black, leading to policies to classify everyone as either white or colored. Virginia had a long history of legally defining people by race. Colonial laws on slavery often used the word Negro and slave interchangeably, and by law at various times some Indians could be enslaved and others not. In 1866, a law declared that every person having 1/4 or more African American blood was deemed to be a colored person, and everyone not colored person having 1/4 or more Indian blood was to be deemed an Indian. on March 20th, 1924. Walter Plecker, in charge of the state's vital statistics record, employed the law to classify all Virginians as white or colored, and to classify the state's Indians as colored. Plecker believed that some African Americans were attempting to pass as Indians and feared that Indians would attempt to pass as white. State vital statistics, he wrote many letters directed to county officials were about specific individuals who he felt were trying to pass as white. Which are these individuals trying to pass as Indian? Right? He often asked for evidence from the county clerk to prove the people in question were African American descent. Plecker also regularly sent out alerts. This guy was obsessed. He's like, yo, we're not going to let these guys pretend to be white, yo. They're not us. They're not like us, man. Instructed that these families were not to be allowed to be listed as white in any record or to be treated as white in any way. He instructed that these families were not to be allowed to be listed as Indian because they're not Indian. Bro. The Human Genome Project ended in 2003.
DNA is accurate as hell. This ain't the 1800s no more, man. It's 2025. Yo. But even if we were to go back in them days, I mean, it's obvious that African Americans are Indian, yo. You know what I mean?
The records are all there. The Racial Integrity Act of 1924 recognized only two races, white and colored. The act required that a racial description of every person be recorded at birth and made marriage between white persons and non-white persons a felony. Plecker developed the racial criteria behind the act and adhered a strict to the one-drop rule, a historical term originating in the South that holds that a person with any trace of African ancestry is considered black. So, by this science, okay, Joe Rogan would be considered black, right? Many influential Virginia families claim descent from Pocahontas. Many influential Virginia families claim descent from Pocahontas. The legislature declared that a person could be considered white with as much as 1/16th Indian ancestry. God. Plecker's policies pressured state agencies to reclassify most citizens claiming Indian identity as colored in spite of a 1930s amendment to Racial Integrity Act restored the legal status of some Virginia Indian, right, this guy, he wanted to just put, yo, you're either white or you're mixed. Now these guys out here, they want to say we're either white or we're Asian. These guys are like Walter Plecker all over again, bro. Cut it out, dude. This policy has left a modern day legacy where Virginia Indians struggle to achieve federal recognition because they cannot prove their heritage as required by laws. Okay? Now guess what, guys? This is for Virginia. This was not an attack on black people. This is an attack on indigenous people, bro. The Virginia Racial Integrity Act was effectively ended in 1967 when the U.S. Supreme Court declared anti-miscegenation laws unconstitutional. Although the Supreme Court ruling invalidated the law, Virginia General Assembly officially repealed the remaining section of the act in 1975 and later passed a resolution in 2001 officially condemning its racist policies. Bro. The Mildred Loving, who was both black and Native American, and her white husband Richard Loving. Mildred Loving was both African American and Native American descent. While she was described as having both ancestry earlier in life, she later identified solely as Native American, specifically Rappahannock, and denied any African roots. Me no black, me no black. I'm Dominican. This shift in self-identification is often linked to the racial politics and complexity of her community, where some mixed heritage families chose to identify as Native American to avoid negative consequences of being black. Mildred Loving's father was Cherokee and Repinhock. Here, you see this? This is her dad. See this? Unfortunately, there's no pictures.
Right. It said her mom was mixed, so can't imagine what she probably looked like, you know. So basically, we're witnessing the Walter Plecker thing all over again. So as we can see, the reclassification paper genocide thing was not for black people. That whole that paper genocide thing, it was to save white folk from keeping black folk from classifying as whites, and it was to paper genocide the Native Americans so that they can't exist on documents. Yo. So this whole Walter Plecker thing, it's a wrap. Yo. But this is part 1. We'll do part 2 tomorrow. Y'all have a great day. Bye.